What is going on, guys? Jason Burke here, Styles Clash for Life, coming at you on YouTube, and today I've got some football focus. The Pittsburgh Steelers just finished their matchup in Week 2 of the 2024 NFL season on the road, playing against the Denver Broncos in the Mile High Stadium. Always concerns about, traveling for later games, having the air up in Denver be thinner, be different, the elevation. So always a concern playing road games like this. Denver, of course, coming in with new rookie quarterback Bo Nix, trying to kind of find their new identity with kind of very little in terms of NFL success going for him so far. Only in Week 2, though, got a lot of promise. But Pittsburgh comes into this game and pretty much seems to have it in hand in the entire first half. There were some dumb penalties, some really bad penalties. We'll talk about it when we get to the actual stats. But aside from some penalties that were stalling out drives and just some technical stuff that we had to iron out, Pittsburgh seemed pretty solid out there. I mean, Justin Fields seemed more comfortable early on. They were taking the deep shots to Pickens early and often. They had, Jalen Warren more involved in the offense. He had some good carries. Najee had some good carries. Pat got a couple things. Things were looking solid on offense. The defense wasn't allowing anything. They were playing lights out even more than last week. The offense started getting sustained drives a little more than last week and got themselves a touchdown in the first half, the first touchdown of the season. So all of a sudden, with that being said, the defense looks just as good, if not better, than last week. The offense comes out looking better. And we go into the half up 10-0. Now, that's not as much as you would like, especially considering some of the long drives we had and some of the penalty issues that we had stalling those drives out. But 10-0 is a solid lead getting the ball in the second half. Second half, we wind up kind of stalling out big time on offense. More penalties on both sides of the ball. Wind up getting outscored in the second half by Denver. Thankfully, our defense played so lights out for the first half and even most of the second half that in spite of short drives and being on the field a lot, Pittsburgh winds up winning this game 13-6. So they go out and get a 10-0 first half lead, lose the second half 6-3. But thankfully, it's enough of a cushion. Pittsburgh gets to 2-0 and beats the team they should beat. It is nice to go on the road and get a win like this, regardless of who you're playing. Denver did wind up making it too close, but I'm happy to say that Denver goes the entire game without scoring a touchdown and not scoring any points at all until about 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter. They had 0 points until the final 10 minutes, in which they got 2 field goals. One of which they had to kick because they wanted to go for the onside kick at the end of the game. So let's discuss kind of the stats here. Let's talk about exactly what went on, and we'll go over the highs and lows. Justin Fields started again today. Russell Wilson's still banged up. And Justin Fields, again, can make a case for keeping this starting job. He's led them to 2 wins, and he's looked pretty solid doing it. Nothing spectacular number-wise this week once again, but 13 of 20, 117 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. So again, the passing numbers aren't gaudy and crazy, but he's making solid reads. He's not making dumb throws. He's not throwing the ball across his body. He's not underthrowing a lot of stuff. He is getting solid completions. He's using Pickens. He's drawing flags. He's getting Pat on the short stuff. He also had, in addition to his 117, 1 touchdown, no picks, 8 carries for 27 yards. So he's not just hiking the ball and looking to run, but he is using that as a good second option, and he's avoiding a lot of pressure, which this line was giving up at times today. Speaking of running, the running offense Arthur Smith wanted is coming into fruition. Najee Harris, 17 carries for 69 yards. That is 4.1 yards per carry. Najee Harris, 9 carries, 42 yards, 4.7 yards a carry. So Najee 69, Jalen 42, and Fields 27 on the ground. You got to feel good about the three-headed monster there. Jalen Warren took a nice catch for a first down. Both had a couple of runs that went for first downs. So you got to feel pretty good about the 1-2 punch there. Overall, even though the line didn't give them a whole lot to open up to, they found some stuff in there. Passing numbers are not going to look good. Again, we only have 117 passing yards in this game. So the receiver numbers are not going to look that great. But I want to give another positive here. Once again, a standout to George Pickens. His stat line only says 2 catches for 29 yards. But once again, he had 2 massive plays called back. One was on a deep ball where Justin Fields ran to the outside, avoided a sack, threw a laser like 45 yards downfield, and Pickens caught it over his shoulder with very tight coverage on him. Had a guy blanketing him all day long. Right over his shoulder, Pickens makes a beautiful catch, clean catch downfield, picks up like 45 to 50 yards that was called back on a hold by Broderick Jones. and then also had a touchdown called back. Justin Fields scrambles out, winds up throwing it to George Pickens, who gets kind of a pick play that the judges and ex-referees had called into the broadcast and said it didn't seem like a pick to them, so it seemed like a bad play call. Went to George Pickens, made a beautiful open catch, turned around, tiptoed the sideline, stayed in bounds enough to extend the ball over the pylon, but that was called back. So Pickens should have had a 50-yard downfield play and also should have had a touchdown. It was called back. And also had, I think he drew 2 flags today. I know Van Jefferson drew 1 deep ball flag. George Pickens drew another one. He might have drawn a third here. So while the 2 for 29 stat line doesn't look crazy, you got a 50-yard catch called back, you got a touchdown called back, and you got at least 1, if not 2 more deep balls that were used for holding penalties. So George Pickens definitely wins the day. Pat Freiermuth is your receiving leader with 4 catches for 39 yards. Very similar to last week, just getting out as a bailout guy, making some nice reliable catches in fairly tight coverage. I do think we need some receiving help to do a little more, so I'm looking forward to seeing what could possibly happen once we get Rowan Wilson back. I think Rowan Wilson's going to make a difference here. Calvin Austin had 1 nice catch, but only got 2 targets in the game. Van Jefferson had 1 nice catch and then one that was pass interfered with. So he was a little more involved today, but I want to see what Rowan Wilson can add to the team. I will say our 1 touchdown went to Washington. Really, really good to see Darnell Washington finally getting a bit of a red zone opportunity. And he was lined up as a wide. He was all the way out on the wide side, went in, made a nice kind of a fade play, made a nice move, basically as a receiver, got a little bit of separation, used his hands to get a slight push-off, used his body, turned and caught the ball. So 1 target for him, but his first NFL touchdown as far as I can recall. So good for Washington as well. I'm going to give some negatives on offense here. Broderick Jones, what a disastrous day. All this talk about Broderick Jones, is he hurt? Is he bad? They were talking about benching him coming into the season because he wasn't really diligent in camp. Then they were talking about he's doing really good, and then he seemingly got hurt. And once he got hurt, he was still playing, but he wasn't playing very good in preseason. And then all of a sudden, all the talk of this week about benching him. And I thought he played pretty well last week. He didn't stand out as being a really terrible player last week. I thought he played pretty good. The whole line overall, I thought played pretty good last week in spite of all the movement. Troy Fautanu comes in. They bench Broderick Jones. So they don't bench Dan Moore, who played mostly pretty well, minus a penalty today. But they bring in Troy Fautanu and bench Broderick Jones. On the maybe 3rd series, they bring Broderick Jones out to do a series. He gets back-to-back-to-back penalties. He gets 3 consecutive holding penalties on 1 series, which he negated that big 50-yard play downfield as well as 2 other big plays. So 3 consecutive penalties on the first drive of the game for Broderick Jones. Then he goes right back out, and Fautanu comes right back in. So I've been a Broderick Jones defender. I've said that he is lined up in the wrong position. I have said that he has been playing hurt. I don't think we're seeing the best of him right now, but this was inexcusable. This was the biggest negative of the entire offense for the day, maybe the biggest negative for the entire game. Overall, the line to me wasn't as good as they were last week. I thought Spencer Anderson played pretty well, saw him get to the second level on a few blocks. I thought all in all, Dan Moore played pretty well, did have 1 penalty of his own. We have to clean those penalties up. We had so many on both sides of the ball today. I should have written them down because Denver had a bunch too. We drew a bunch from Denver. We also gave a bunch back, sacrificing a lot of Denver penalties with offsetting penalties, ending a lot of drives, including one that was that 50-plus yarder, one that started from the 1-yard line. We sacrificed a lot of potential points for penalties in this thing. So Broderick had 3, Dan Moore had 1. You have to clean those up. I think Connor Hayward had 1 as well. So 5 on the offensive line blocking today. Not good. Not good. But all in all, like I said, some positives out of like Spencer Anderson and at times from Dan Moore as well. But got to clean that stuff up. Also, on the last series, there was another Justin Fields fumble. This is the 4th one in like 4 overall games. The 2 preseason games, he had in his first preseason game, he had 2 fumbles, and then he had 1 last week that we thankfully we recovered, and then he had 1 this week, the last 3rd down of the game for us. Justin Fields fumbles again. Looks like he's not looking for the ball. I don't know whose fault this is. I don't know if it's on Zach Frazier. He's been the best offensive lineman so far through 2 weeks, if you don't count those fumbles as being his fault. So we got to figure those out too. Thankfully, we didn't lose it. Jaylen Warren picked it up. So 2 fumbles in 2 weeks, but neither one has been lost so far. Have to clean that up big time. Defensively, Pittsburgh allowed no points through over 3 quarters. No points allowed until 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Only 2 field goals, no touchdowns all game. Very, very nice. 2 sacks today, 1 from TJ Watt, which he didn't touch Bo Nix. Nix kind of felt Watt breathe on his ankles, and he fell over. But Watt got a lot of nice pressures. He was held at least twice. Highsmith was held at least once as well, so we drew 3 penalties off those guys being held. Nate Herbig came in and was held and drew a nice holding call off a good move on the line as well. So our outside linebackers drew at least 3, if not 4, holding penalties, which put Denver in rough situations. Watt also gets a sack. Highsmith gets a sack. He had a lot of pressure today. He looked great. Big positives for him. I think he had 5 tackles leading the team on top of his sack and several pressures. Love what both those guys did. 2 interceptions today, 2 turnovers on Bo Nix. 1 for Corey Trice. First of Corey Trice's career. Love to see that. Love Corey Trice. He came in because Dante Jackson went down with an injury. Very next play, Trice comes in. Very next play, Trice gets the pick in the end zone, taking points off the board. Nix was throwing a back of the end zone play to Cortland Sutton. Trice bumped up and then slid back and lurked and got the nice interception. Good, strong body, good hands. Taking points off the board. Big pick for Corey Trice. Part of me wants to say get this guy more reps and more opportunities out there because he got more plays today and he played well. But Dante Jackson is also playing very well, and JPJ, minus the holding, is an elite shutdown corner. JPJ is one of the best in the league. His only downside is those penalties. And Jackson and Trice are all playing good ball right now, so you got to feel good about our secondary. The other pick was DeMonte Casey. Last play of the game, Nix was throwing one down the middle of the field. Casey jumped it and picked it off. He has been very solid. Minka has stood out as far as being a big-time tackler for this team like he always is. And we'll talk about Deshaun Elliott because, my God, that guy's been on fire. But KZ, for being a third safety, is just a solid veteran making solid plays. So positives to Trice and KZ as well. We'll go to Deshaun Elliott now. That guy's all over the field. He is cracking people. He is getting back in coverage when he needs to. He's blitzing off the edge and causing errant throws. He's hitting the quarterback in pressure. He's effective in the run game. He's effective in the pass game. He's effective in just lowering the helmet and lowering the boom. He is playing the most complete football maybe of any defensive player on this team right now besides TJ Watt, maybe even Highsmith. If you take the 2 outside linebackers out, Deshaun Elliott's playing the best ball of all. Dante Jackson's another guy, just a solid pickup. He's just been a good number 2. Played good last week, played good this week. Came right back after that injury that he had when he went off the field and made a nice play to knock a ball down. So he's been very effective and given up nothing major. I love what Dante Jackson's doing. Larry Ogunjobi today, underrated guy. He only has, I think, 3 tackles on the stat line, but he seemed like in the run game, he's all over the field. He got a pressure today. He got a few tackles. I think this whole front 7, including the bench, is just incredibly, incredibly deep. I think everybody is out there making plays. Keanu Benton had 1 or 2 tackles in the run game. Isaiah Loudermilk had a batted ball off the line that almost resulted in a pick today. Those guys are playing good. Cam has been playing good. Larry Ogunjobi's all over the field at that position right now. Like I said, Landon Roberts was pretty solid today in the run game. Obviously, Patrick Queen has been a beast. Peyton Wilson's been all over the field getting tackles with his speedy self all over the place. Nate Herbig off the bench has been effective. I love everyone that's out there right now. They're all playing wonderfully. And again, if you also break that into DeMonte Casey being a third safety, and then you want to talk about Corey Trice being a third corner, all being super effective. This defense is clicking on all cylinders. All I have to say in the negatives for that is just watch the penalties. JPJ had 2 today, 1 holding and 1 hands to the face, both of which negated big Denver penalties that could have backed them way up and gave them offsetting penalties. So JPJ getting penalized and holding is nothing new. He does it all the time. He needs to watch that. Dude is massively talented. He's physical. His body's great. He is a super athlete. Dude's a monster. He needs to watch the holding penalties. Special teams, Chris Boswell 2 for 2 once again after his 6 for 6 week last week. Hit 2 field goals today, including another 50-plus yarder, I think 53 today. So no big surprise there, but big ups, big positive. And Corliss Waitman, we signed Corliss Waitman after losing Cameron Johnston last week for the season. Losing your newly famed all-star punter in week 1 is really, really sad. We signed Corliss Waitman off the street, needing a new punter this week. They signed him mostly because he had been the holder for Chris Boswell in the past, and he was going to be holding field goal kicks. and that convinced Mike Tomlin to sign him. What a game for him. 8 punts today, 424 yards. That is an average on 8 punts of 53 yards per punt. Really impressive. 2 of those wound up inside the 20-yard line, and the only reason why a bunch more didn't is because he kicked them out of the back of the end zone. And a couple of them were landed inside the 20 and just couldn't be downed. So 8, 424, 53-yard punt average on 8 punts. Really good stuff from Waitman today. So yeah, Pittsburgh gets command early, stays great on defense, falters a little on offense, but overall moves the ball. We just have to worry about those fumbles and those penalties and getting kind of the offensive line alignment figured out, because once we have that, everything else is here. Once we get Roman Wilson back, I want to see what he can do to help out the receiving situation, and we could be looking at a really, really good team here. Pittsburgh gets the win 13-6. Not as pretty as you'd like, but moments that definitely stand out. Pittsburgh goes to 2-0, and I'm liking where we're at. Who stood out to you and why? Who did you like and who did you not like in this game? Tell me in the comments down below. Please like, share, and subscribe if you like these Steeler Deep Dive review videos, and I will see you guys next week for another one. Take care and go Steelers.